There exists a peculiar truth about those set apart, those who by design or by destiny walk a path not meant for the common crowd. The world in its usual fashion takes their presence for granted. Their wisdom, their guidance, their mere existence often go unacknowledged, until, of course, they are no longer there. Then, suddenly, the air grows heavier, conversations seem emptier. The ones who dismissed you begin to whisper, and the ones who relied on you find themselves lost. It is a curious thing, how absence does what presence never could. It forces reflection. You see, a chosen one is not merely valued by what they say or do, but by the silent testimony their absence leaves behind. When you step away, when you withdraw your wisdom, your kindness, your patience, the reaction of those left behind tells you all you need to know. Some will awaken, realizing with regret what they failed to appreciate. Others will grow resentful, for your absence reminds them of what they lack. This perhaps is the most telling moment of all. It is not your words that reveal the hearts of others, but your silence. The indifferent will show their need. The proud will reveal their insecurity. It is here that you learn who truly valued you and who merely used you. Yet this lesson is not for them alone. It is for you as well. If your absence unsettles them, then it was never your duty to force them into gratitude, but to let them face the void you left behind. Sometimes the greatest act of love is departure. Not in malice, not in bitterness, but in wisdom. And so the question remains, when your absence has done its work, will you return? Not all lessons need a reunion. Some distances are meant to remain, not as punishment, but as an enduring reminder that some presences are too valuable to be neglected. Choose wisely. For it is not just your presence that holds power, but the space you leave behind. The weight of your presence. The presence of a chosen one is often like the steady hum of a distant river. Always there, always flowing, yet rarely noticed until it has gone. It is in the nature of human beings to overlook what is constant, just as one does not daily marvel at the warmth of the sun or the reliability of the seasons, so too do people fail to recognize the weight of a chosen one's presence while they are near. There is something about familiarity that breeds complacency. When a person of wisdom, integrity, or strength is readily available, their presence is treated as a given rather than a gift. They become the unshaken pillar in the room, the one whose advice is always at hand, whose patience never seems to wane. People lean upon them as one leans upon a sturdy tree, assuming it will always stand, no matter how many storms pass. But what happens when that pillar is removed? What occurs when the tree, weary of its unacknowledged strength, steps away? It is then that the true weight of their presence is revealed. The absence of a chosen one does not simply create a gap, it creates an imbalance. The harmony they once upheld begins to waver. Conversations that once seemed effortless feel strained. The direction they quietly provided is now an open void. It is not that those left behind were unaware of their importance, but rather they never imagined a world in which they would be gone. They assumed their presence was eternal, that their counsel was infinite. The reality of their absence forces a reckoning, a realization that their stability was never ordinary, but an extraordinary gift that had been mistaken for normalcy. This is where the weight of a chosen one's presence becomes most evident. When they were there, they carried burdens without complaint, solved problems before they became disasters, and steadied those who were faltering. And yet, when they withdraw, it is not merely their voice or their actions that are missed, but the silent way in which they held everything together. It is often said that a strong foundation is unseen, buried beneath the house it supports. Only when cracks begin to form, when walls begin to shift, do people look beneath their feet and realize what they have taken for granted. The chosen ones are much the same. Their presence was never flashy, never demanding. It was a quiet force that shaped the atmosphere of a room, a household, a community. And in their absence, everything they once upheld begins to crumble, slowly at first, then all at once. There is an irony in this revelation. When they were present, their influence was so seamlessly woven into the fabric of daily life that it was easy to overlook. But when they are gone, it becomes impossible to ignore. The weight of their presence was never meant to be noticed in the moment. It was meant to be felt in the echoes of their absence. A silent testimony. Absence is rarely neutral. It does not simply create an empty space. It exposes what was hidden beneath the surface. When a chosen one withdraws, their absence does something profound. It forces those left behind to confront their true feelings. Some will recognize the void for what it is, acknowledging how much they depended on the wisdom and stability of the one who left. Others will react with denial, disguising their discomfort with indifference or even resentment. But regardless of how they respond, one truth remains. Absence reveals what presence could not. There are those who, in the presence of a chosen one, take their influence for granted. They assume that wisdom will always be given, the guidance will always be available, the patience will always be extended. But when that presence is no longer there, they are faced with a silent question. Was their reliance ever truly appreciated? If gratitude existed, it will be magnified in absence. If it did not, absence will make its neglect undeniable. Some will be forced to acknowledge what they never admitted while the chosen one was near, that their strength was borrowed, their direction was guided, their stability was a result of someone else's endurance. It is an uncomfortable realization. Many would rather believe that they were self-sufficient, that they could have managed just fine on their own. But when faced with the undeniable shift that absence creates, they come to see the truth. They were not as independent as they once thought. There is another reaction that often emerges: presentment. Rather than admitting their need, some will grow bitter, blaming the chosen one for stepping away. They will say it was selfish, that it was cruel, that it was unnecessary. But what they are truly expressing is frustration, not at the one who left, but at themselves for never appreciating their presence while they had it. It is easier to be angry than to admit fault. It is easier to resent someone's absence than to confess that their presence was undervalued. This silent testimony speaks louder than any words could. Those who truly valued the chosen one will feel their absence as a loss. Those who only used them will feel it as an inconvenience. Those who never saw their worth will scramble to convince themselves that nothing has changed, even as everything around them falls apart. A chosen one does not need to justify their withdrawal. Their absence will do all the explaining for them. It will reveal who cherished them, who exploited them, who ignored them, and who depended on them far more than they ever admitted. It is not in arguments or explanations that the truth comes out, but in the way people react when the presence they once took for granted is no longer there. The most powerful revelations do not come through spoken words, but through unspoken realizations. A chosen one's absence does not seek to punish or to prove a point. It simply unveils what was hidden beneath the surface all along. The illusion of indifference. Indifference is often a mask, not a truth. It is easy for people to pretend that the presence of a chosen one does not matter when that presence is constant. They act as though they could take or leave their wisdom, their guidance, their stability. They downplay the role that such a person plays in their lives, convincing themselves that they would manage just as well without them. But when the chosen one steps away, when the steady influence is suddenly removed, the illusion of indifference begins to crumble. There are those who act as though they never truly needed the chosen one. They dismiss their presence as ordinary, their wisdom as predictable, their strength as unremarkable. They assume that life will continue just as smoothly in their absence. But time reveals a different story. The subtle ways in which the chosen one held things together, the unspoken influence they had on the people around them, the balance they unknowingly maintained, all of these things begin to show themselves when they are gone. The ones who claim indifference will find themselves unsettled. They will not always admit it openly, but their actions will betray them. Conversations that once flowed naturally now feel strained. Small conflicts that were once effortlessly resolved now escalate unnecessarily. Decisions that once felt certain now seem clouded by doubt. The very atmosphere shifts in their absence, and yet those who never valued them will hesitate to acknowledge the truth. Pride plays a great role in sustaining the illusion. It is difficult for some to admit that they relied on another person more than they thought. They would rather insist that things are as they always were than confront the reality that something vital is missing. But denial does not erase truth. The longer the absence lasts, the more obvious the void becomes. What was once dismissed as ordinary is now revealed to be exceptional. There are also those who will attempt to fill the space left behind. They will try to replicate the wisdom, the patience, the steady hand that once guided them. But imitation rarely carries the same power as authenticity. The difference becomes clear. What the chosen one offered was not merely a role they played, but a depth of understanding, a quiet strength, a presence that cannot be easily replaced. Resentment sometimes follows. When the illusion of indifference breaks, when the weight of absence becomes undeniable, frustration arises. Some will blame the chosen one for leaving rather than admit that they failed to appreciate them while they were present. They will call them selfish, accuse them of abandoning their responsibilities, insist that things were never as bad as they seemed. But these are the words of those who refused to see the truth until it was too late. The greatest irony is that the chosen one never needed validation. They did not seek recognition for their presence, nor did they demand gratitude. They simply existed in their role, offering what they could, guiding when needed, steadying when others wavered. It was only in their absence that their significance became undeniable. Indifference was never real. It was a comfortable illusion, a convenient way to avoid acknowledging dependence. But absence is a teacher that cannot be ignored. It forces truth to the surface, revealing the depth of impact that the chosen one had all along. The strength of absence. Absence has a way of accomplishing what presence never could. It forces reflection where words have failed, exposes truth where denial once stood, and compels growth in ways that comfort never could. The chosen one, by their very nature, carries a weight that others do not fully recognize until it is gone. Their wisdom, patience, and quiet influence shape those around them. Yet this shaping is rarely acknowledged until it is no longer available. There are lessons that presence cannot teach. When someone is always available, their strength becomes a given. Their guidance is expected rather than appreciated. Their steadiness is treated as an unchanging element of life, rather than the result of effort, wisdom, and sacrifice. But when they withdraw, a shift occurs. The ones who relied on them must now face what was once shielded from them. The responsibility they once ignored now falls squarely upon them. Absence demands confrontation. It does not allow avoidance. The ones left behind must now wrestle with their own inadequacies, their own shortcomings, their own dependence. Where once they could lean on the chosen one for wisdom, they must now seek wisdom on their own. Where once they could count on another to bring balance, they must now create balance themselves. Growth is no longer optional, it is a necessity. The discomfort that absence brings is not cruelty, it is a gift. It forces maturity where immaturity once ruled. It compels responsibility where complacency had taken root. It reveals the true character of those left behind. Some will rise, taking the challenge as an opportunity to grow. Others will falter, resenting the struggle and blaming the one who left rather than confronting their own weaknesses. But regardless of how they respond, the process is in motion. The chosen one's absence is shaping them in ways that presence never could. Not all lessons can be taught through words. Some must be learned through loss. When a chosen one is present, their wisdom is often met with resistance, their guidance dismissed as unnecessary. But in their absence, those same words echo in the minds of those who once ignored them. Advice once taken lightly now becomes invaluable. Warnings that were shrugged off now seem prophetic. The silence of the chosen one speaks louder than their voice ever did. Absence is not simply about loss. It is about transformation. Those who were once content to remain stagnant must now either grow or be left behind. It is in the void that true strength is discovered. Not just the strength of the one who left, but the strength of those who remain. Some will realize that they were capable of more than they believed. Others will see, perhaps for the first time, just how much they depended on the chosen one's presence. The greatest impact of absence is that it removes the illusion of security. People who once felt safe in the presence of a chosen one now face the reality of standing on their own. This is where their true character is revealed, not in moments of ease, but in moments of challenge. Will they step up, or will they crumble? Will they learn, or will they retreat into resentment? The chosen one's absence is not just about what is lost. It is about what is revealed. It is a refining fire, burning away illusion and exposing reality. And for those who are willing to face that reality, it is the beginning of something greater than they ever imagined.